There are two kinds of silence, the peaceful kind and the kind that screams. For 48 hours, our house was filled with the screaming kind. Last time, in a moment I never saw coming, my quiet, angry stepson Leo and I formed the most unlikely alliance on the planet. He revealed that he knew about his father's dark side all along, and his goal wasn't to protect his dad, it was to protect me from suffering the same fate as his mother. So, he did it. He sent a message into the void. A digital flare shot into the darkness, addressed to Daniel Moreau, the secret man his mother loved. A desperate plea for help. And then, nothing. With every passing hour of that deafening silence, our hope began to curdle into a thick, choking fear. What if D never replied? What if he was scared? What if he was gone? We had taken a monumental risk, and the only thing we had to show for it was a terrifying, empty inbox. And all the while, my husband Michael was watching us, a silent predator in his own home, his eyes full of a suspicion he couldn't quite name. He forced Leo and me into a quiet, nerve-wracking cat and mouse game every time he walked by. Today, you're going to see what happens when the waiting game finally ends. You'll watch Michael launch a new kind of attack, a campaign of perfect, terrifying normalcy designed to make me think I'm losing my mind. You'll witness my ex-husband Mark's little sabotage plan backfire so spectacularly, it might just crack the very foundation of his control over our daughter. And you'll be there for the moment that empty inbox finally pings. A reply arrives, a message that doesn't just give us answers, but gives us a face, a deadline, and a warning that confirms our absolute worst fears. The silence is about to be broken. Let's get into it. So, while Leo and I were living in this state of high alert, secret agent suspense, waiting for a message that might never come, Michael launched a new offensive. It was a campaign of perfect normalcy. And let me tell you, it was 1,000 times more unsettling than his anger. I walked into the kitchen the next morning, and the man who had spat Sarah's name at me like a curse was gone. In his place was a husband from a 1950s sitcom. He was at the stove, humming, flipping pancakes. He'd made coffee, just the way I like it. He smiled this bright, easy smile as I walked in. "Morning, honey," he said, sliding a perfect plate in front of me. "Thought I'd get a head start on breakfast." It was a performance, and he was gunning for an Oscar. He asked me about the flower shop. He talked about a new building project, and then came the masterstroke. Leo came downstairs, quiet and watchful as always, and Michael looked at a new sketch Leo had left on the counter. "Hey, this is really good, son," Michael said, his voice full of that warm, fatherly pride I'd never heard from him before. "You've really got a great eye." My blood ran cold. This was the man from the early pages of Sarah's diary, charming, attentive, perfect. This wasn't an apology. It was a tactic, a masterclass in what I now know is called love bombing. He wasn't trying to fix things. He was trying to erase them. It was a performance designed to make me doubt what I'd read in that diary, to make me question the rage I'd seen in his eyes, to make me wonder if maybe I was the crazy one. He was trying to gaslight me back into submission. Leo and I just exchanged a look, a flicker of an eye across the breakfast table that lasted less than a second, but it said everything. We both knew. This kindness was a cage, just a much prettier one. And that's the lesson I was learning in real time. The most dangerous kind of control doesn't always come with a roar. Sometimes it comes with a smile and a plate of perfectly cooked pancakes designed to make you forget you were ever afraid in the first place. I was so focused on the predator smiling at me across the kitchen table, I had almost forgotten about the other one, the one who didn't need to be in the house to set his own very different trap. And that trap was about to spectacularly backfire on his favorite little pawn. I was so focused on the predator smiling at me across the kitchen table that I almost forgot about the other one, the one who didn't need to be in the house to set his own very different trap. And that trap was about to spectacularly close on his favorite little pawn. My phone buzzed. It was Chloe. Then it buzzed again, and again, a frantic series of missed calls and texts that screamed, "Teenage crisis." The last message? "Mom, pick up, please." I knew. Oh, I knew exactly what this was. My mind instantly conjured the scene. Chloe, at the mall with her friends, laughing, piling clothes onto the counter. And then, the moment of truth. The cashier swipes the unlimited credit card her hero dad gave her. A pause. Another swipe. And then, the quiet, soul-crushing words. "I'm sorry, it's declined." I could feel her humiliation like it was my own. The burning cheeks, the confused, pitying stares from her friends, the sudden, terrifying realization that she was stranded, her lifeline cut without warning. This wasn't an accident. This was a calculated move, a power play designed by a master. And as I grabbed my keys, my heart torn between a bitter "I told you so" and the simple, overwhelming instinct of a mom, I knew one thing for sure. Mark wasn't teaching her a lesson about money. He was teaching her a lesson about power. His power. And the lesson was just beginning. I found her exactly where a teenager goes to feel sorry for herself. Alone, on a bench, just outside the school gates, doing her best to look invisible. I didn't say anything at first. I just handed her a bottle of water, which is universal mom code for, "Let's start this conversation without a fight." She finally looked up. Her voice was small, all the teenage bravado completely gone. "He won't answer my calls," she mumbled, staring at the ground. "The car doesn't work." And as I looked at my daughter, so broken and confused, the full, ugly brilliance of Mark's plan settled in my mind. This was his game. I was the star player for over a decade. Step 1. Give them a taste of absolute power and freedom. Make them feel indebted to you. Step 2. Rip it away at the most inconvenient moment. Watch them crash and burn. Step 3. Wait for them to come crawling back, desperate. This wasn't a punishment. It was a trap, a performance, a power move. And here's the lesson about true narcissists, the one I had to learn the hard way. They don't want your love. They want your dependence. They'll burn down your entire village just so they can be the one to rescue you from the fire. I didn't scold her. I didn't yell. I just told her the truth, because sometimes the quietest truths are the ones that hit the hardest. "Your father gives things, Chloe," I said gently, "but he can always take them away. That's not a gift. It's a leash." And for the first time, possibly in her entire life, Chloe didn't argue. No eye roll, no sarcastic comeback, just silence. The sound of a little crack forming in the perfect marble statue of her hero dad, a seed of doubt finally planted. We were driving home in that new, heavy silence, when suddenly, my own world was about to get a jolt. My phone buzzed with a text. It was from Leo, and it was only 3 words. When my phone rang and I saw Chloe's name lighting up the screen, I knew exactly what had happened. The other shoe had dropped. And in that moment, I had a choice. There's the petty, vindicated part of you that wants to scream, "I told you so!" And then there's the part of you that's just a mom. Thankfully, the mom won. I found her exactly where a teenager goes to feel sorry for herself, alone on a bench just outside the school gates, doing her best to look invisible. I didn't say anything at first. I just handed her a bottle of water, which is universal mom code for, let's start this conversation without a fight. She finally looked up, her voice small, all the teenage bravado completely gone. "He won't answer my calls," she mumbled, staring at the ground. "The card doesn't work." And I didn't scold her. I didn't yell. I just told her the truth, because sometimes the quietest truths are the ones that hit the hardest. "Your father gives things, Chloe," I said, my voice gentle, "but he can always take them away. That's not a gift. It's a leash." And here's the thing that almost made me pull the car over. For the first time, possibly in her entire life, Chloe didn't argue. There was no eye roll, no sarcastic comeback, just silence. It was the sound of a little crack forming in the perfect marble statue of her hero dad. For the first time, a seed of doubt had been planted, not by me, but by him. That's a hard lesson for any kid to learn, but a vital one. A gift with strings attached isn't a gift. It's a leash, one that can be yanked back at any time. We were driving home, in this new, heavy silence, the air thick with things she was finally starting to understand. And just as I thought we were about to have a real breakthrough in our own little family Cold War, my own world was about to get a jolt. My phone buzzed with a text. It was from Leo, and it was only 3 words. I was driving home with a sullen, silent Chloe in the passenger seat, the air in the car thick with her crumbling teenage worldview. I was just starting to think about how I was going to navigate this new, fragile dynamic with her when my phone buzzed on the center console. It was a sound I had been both dreading and praying for the last 48 hours. At the next red light, my hand trembled a little as I reached for it. It was a text from Leo, and it was just 3 words. 3 words that sent a jolt of pure adrenaline straight through my heart. He replied, "Come home." Everything else just vanished. My daughter's credit card drama, her manipulative father, Michael's creepy pancake-making performance, it all evaporated into thin air. There was only the message. The digital flare we had shot into the darkness had gotten a response. My heart didn't just pound, it felt like it did a backflip in my chest. The light turned green, and I pressed the gas, a little harder than I meant to. The silence in the car was suddenly broken. It was no longer Chloe's quiet shame. It was my thundering panic and hope. I could feel her eyes on me, her own problems forgotten. She could feel the shift. The air in the car had gone from awkwardly quiet to electrically charged in less than a second. And that's the terrifying lesson of a moment like this. Your whole world, all your carefully managed dramas and priorities can be completely upended by a single 3-word text message. The drive home wasn't just a drive anymore. It was a race toward a truth that, after 2 days of agonizing silence, I suddenly wasn't sure I was ready to face. We gathered in Leo's room, the door shut, and it felt less like a bedroom and more like a secret war room. The 3 of us huddled around the glow of his laptop screen like co-conspirators planning a coup. Me, Leo, and now Chloe, who had followed me upstairs, her own drama forgotten, drawn in by the sheer gravity of whatever was happening. She was hovering by the door, an accidental audience to a play she never bought a ticket for. The message was short, but every single word was heavy with a history I was only just beginning to understand. Leo read it aloud, his voice quiet. "Leo, I am shocked to hear from you. Your mother was a brilliant artist and a beautiful soul. I've often wondered what became of you. Her death was a tragedy that I still don't fully understand. I am currently living out of state, but I will be in town for a gallery opening in 2 weeks. Perhaps we can meet. Be careful. The room was silent for a moment. Then, my mind started racing, decoding it line by line. I still don't fully understand. Those aren't the words you use when someone dies from a long, tragic illness. You might say it was unfair, or heartbreaking, or too soon, but you understand it. You use a phrase like that when the official story doesn't add up, when the pieces don't fit. And then, the last two words, be careful. That wasn't just a friendly sign-off. It was a warning. A confirmation sent from a stranger across the country that our fear wasn't just in our heads. He wasn't just sad about her death. He was suspicious of it. And he was warning us that digging into it was dangerous. And here's a lesson you learn when you're dealing with secrets and fear. The most important messages are often the ones whispered between the lines. He couldn't say, "I think your dad is a monster and you're in danger." But he did. He said it with the words he chose not to use and the warning he chose to give. The reply didn't just give us hope. It gave us a deadline, 2 weeks, and it gave us a whole new mission. But in doing so, it also dragged a new, unsuspecting person into our secret war. That reply didn't just give us hope. It gave us a deadline, 2 weeks, and it gave us a brand new, terrifying mission. But in that moment, our secret alliance of two was interrupted by the one person who could either be our greatest asset or our biggest liability. Chloe, who had been standing silently by the door, finally spoke. Her voice was small, confused, and for the first time, completely stripped of any teenage sarcasm. "Wait, what are you guys talking about?" she asked, her eyes darting between me and Leo. "What happened to Leo's mom?" The question hung in the air. Leo and I looked at each other, and in that split second, we had an entire silent conversation. Do we tell her? Can we trust her? She'll tell Mark. No, maybe she won't. We can't keep this from her. It's too dangerous. I made a choice. We couldn't tell her everything. You can't just tell a 16-year-old that her new stepfather might be a killer. But we couldn't keep her in the dark either. A confused, uninformed teenager in this house was like a walking landmine. So I told her a version of the truth. I explained that we had found Sarah's diary and that the story everyone was told about her long illness might not be the whole story, that there were secrets, and that we were just trying to find out the truth, for Sarah's sake. I watched her face as the pieces clicked into place, and it was like watching a building crumble in slow motion. Her entire world was being attacked on two fronts. The hero dad he worshipped had just revealed himself to be a master manipulator, and the boring, strict stepfather she hated was now at the center of a dark, frightening mystery. There was no solid ground for her to stand on. And that's the lesson about bringing someone into a secret. You're not just sharing information, you're asking them to carry a piece of your burden. It's a leap of faith, a gamble, and we had just placed all our bets on the most unpredictable person in the house. Our new mission was clear: find out who Daniel Moreau was before he arrived in town. We had a name, we had a warning, but we were missing one crucial piece. We had no idea what he looked like. We had a name, we had a warning, but we had no face. A ghost is hard to fight, but a ghost without a face is impossible to find. And that's when Leo, ever the artist with a photographic memory, remembered something. He didn't say a word. He just walked over to his closet and pulled out a dusty, forgotten box. It was filled with his mom's old photo albums, a personal archive he had never let his father touch. He sat down on the floor and started flipping through the pages. Images of a life I never knew. Birthdays, holidays, moments frozen in time. And then he stopped. He turned the album around so Chloe and I could see. It was a photo from some gallery opening years ago. There was Sarah, radiant in the center, laughing, her head tilted just so. And next to her, a man I'd never seen before. Handsome, dark hair, kind, intense eyes. But it wasn't them that made my breath catch in my throat. It was Michael. He was in the picture too, standing off to the side, almost cropped out of the frame. But he wasn't smiling. He wasn't even looking at the camera. He was staring, right at the man next to his wife. And the look on his face, it was pure, unfiltered hatred. A look so full of possessive rage, it felt like it could burn a hole straight through the photograph. It's one thing to read about jealousy in a diary. It's another thing entirely to see it frozen in a single devastating moment. A picture doesn't just capture a memory, it captures the truth buried within it. "That's him," Leo whispered, his finger hovering just over the man's face. "That has to be Dee." Suddenly, it was all real. The ghost I'd been chasing in the pages of a diary wasn't just a story anymore. A name, a warning, and now, a face. But more than a face, it was a look. The look in my husband's eyes in that old photograph, that wasn't just a memory. It was a confession. A confession of hatred so pure, so deep, it felt like it could burn right through the page and set our whole world on fire. All this time, I thought this was a story about me, trying to survive in a house haunted by a perfect ghost. But I was wrong. Standing there in that quiet room, with her children, I finally understood. This isn't about a dead wife's diary anymore. It's about a living son's promise to his mother. And it's about my promise to him and to her memory. We're not just uncovering a secret anymore. We are fighting for a truth that someone was willing to kill to keep buried. We have 2 weeks until Daniel Moreau arrives in town. 2 weeks to turn a photograph and a cryptic warning into a case. 2 weeks to find out what really happened in the final days of Sarah's life, before we meet the one man who might hold the final key. But here's the truth. We're not detectives. We're a terrified stepmom and 2 teenagers living under the same roof as the man we're secretly investigating. And now, Chloe knows. My unpredictable, heartbroken daughter, she is the biggest risk we face, the wild card in this whole dangerous game. So I need your help. I need you to predict it for me. Predict Chloe's next move in the comments. A. Join the alliance. B. Tell her father, Mark, everything. C. Accidentally reveal the secret to Michael. Episode 8 is where this investigation gets dangerous. We try to dig into Michael's past, and he comes so close to catching us, you will be holding your breath. The countdown has officially begun. Subscribe and hit that bell because you cannot miss what happens next.